gentlemen, this contest set for one fall. Yes, for the WWE Championship.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Welcome to another edition of Around the Turnbuckle. I'm the big Albowski. That guy right there is your pal and mine, Professor Keith. And joining us live from Indiana is the one and only Scott Alexzander. What's up, Scott?
Not much. How about you guys?
We are excellent. Now, due to some technical difficulties, for those of you who are waiting or looking for Scott, like his picture, his video, we usually have that with our guests, but once in a while, and this ain't the first time, Keith, as you know, once in a while we have internet issues, so Scott is via the phone, just to let everybody know. And I have the banner down there, Scott. I don't know if you can see it or not, but on the phone, Scott Alexzander from Indiana. And let's get to it. We got some comments already flying in. Chase McClure says this is going to be great. Big Chris Vant checking in. Our boy Keith. What's up, Yep. Big Chris down in South Carolina? And welcome everybody to Around the Turnbuckle. And this is Scott Alexzander. Watch a few of his matches, Keith, online, and I really like what I see. I like the character development. Make no mistake about it, he's been in the business now for 4 years, by his own admission, he says, but he's only been wrestling for a year or two. So, like, you know, the word green pops up there, but I didn't see a lot of that. Like, he called himself green pre-show. I think he's on his way to, you know, getting better and better as I could see it. You know, you can see shades of it, right? You look like if somebody hits somebody as green as he is, you would think has, you know, you can see it. I don't see it. So, Scott, my first question to you, buddy, is how did you fall in love with professional wrestling? Because each and every guest we have at one time or another fell in love with this business, whether they were a kid and they started watching as a kid. Like, what's that story for you?
So when I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old, we were scrolling through channels, and me, my brother Chase, my dad, we were scrolling through channels, and Monday Night Raw pops up. I want to say maybe about 2006 or 7, and I want to say it was John Cena. Yeah, it was John Cena on the TV, and me and my brother, we got hooked instantly. And from then on, we just watched. It became a weekly thing. Then we discovered SmackDown, and it became a weekly thing where we would just watch it all the time. And I loved it from the very second it came on the TV. It was almost like an addiction of sorts.
So growing up, you know, during the Cena era, in the early 2000s, growing up in that era, we've talked to a lot of guys that have grew up in that area, and their influences are like guys like John Cena, guys like Randy Orton, guys who came up through that time. Even Brock Lesnar in his early days came up through that time. So were you a fan enough to, like, you know, were you wrestling in the backyard, or like, you know, because I used to wrestle my brothers in the living room and stuff like that. Did you ever do anything like that?
Yes, actually, we would wrestle in the backyard, in the living room. There was a time where wrestling was banned from my house because my brother decided he was going to pick me up and give me the tombstone pile driver off the couch.
No. You ever hear that disclaimer there, Scott? Like, don't try this at home?
Yeah, I hate to be that guy, but you know what? When you're tombstoning people off the couch and you're not trained, you know what? I think it was the same ban.
Right.
Yeah, we were kids. I mean, we're not Like since when do kids listen to the disclaimer?
Yeah.
So okay, so fast forward to you grow up, and it's a part of you, like you love it. So you at one point made a decision you want to try this. How did you seek out where in your local area to learn how to do this, or did you know anybody? Like, how'd that work out?
It was about 2019 for the promotion I currently work for right now, Functified Wrestling Federation, also known as F. You can find them on Facebook, by the way. Me and my brother Garrett, we've been going since we were about 10, 11. And I had just turned 17. And the owner and promoter Brian Johnson found me and my brother. We've been talking to him for a couple of years, like, hey, when we come of age, we want to come work for you. And he brushed it off like, oh, hey, yeah, sure, your kids. Well, when we came of age, where it was okay to start training, we found Brian, and Brian said, you know what, you guys are old enough now. As long as it's okay with you, Mom, here, I can get you guys some training, and you guys just got to work security for me, sell tickets, and train when it's time to train, then we'll get you in the ring. And without a second thought, yes. And we spent like 3-4 months working security, training, and selling tickets. Granted, we weren't the greatest at selling tickets at the time because, yeah. And eventually we started. We got into battle royals. There was a time where in FWF where there was a battle royal every show, mostly for green guys and new guys to get some experience in the ring, get the character over with fans and stuff. Around that, I want to say first year time period, me and my brother, we went through like maybe 3 or 4 different gimmicks within almost a 6-month time span because we just couldn't figure it out. Then eventually we kind of stuck to one thing at the time and just ran with it.
Okay, so you went through a bunch of gimmicks, you said. Tell us about the origin of Scott Alexzander. Who is Scott Alexzander?
That's a good question, actually. So Scott Alexzander, the name, first off, is essentially my 2 middle names split backwards. My middle name would be Alexander Scott. Me and my uncle Jamie were sitting on the porch one morning and talking about this, and we couldn't figure out a name. Well, he heard my mother holler at me across the hallway, and I get up to go see what she wants. He stops me. He's like, "Hold up, I got it. Flip your 2 middle names backwards, and what do you got?" Scott, there you go. And we ran from it from there. Current Scott, I would say, kind of came from my 3 biggest influences would be John Moxley, also known as Dean Ambrose,
right,
and Wyatt, and Brody Lee, with a little bit of more me added to it. Scott is more of the character itself. He hears voices and just all around crazy, but comes from the woods.
So did you hear that, Keith? He's a combination. Scott Alexzander, the character, is a combination of John Moxley, Bray Wyatt, and Brody Lee.
So he's doing a lot of the Wild Man gimmick, which, I mean, the Wild Man gimmick always works. It's always great for grabbing attention. The only thing to be worried about with the Wild Man gimmick, and I have to go all the way back to the original Sheik, which I do have a book on him on order. I can't wait for that to come out. Of course, I got to wait 2 freaking months, but whatever.
Well, you might not know who that is.
We're not here for me to complain about my book troubles. But going back to the original Sheik, you're talking about Sabu's uncle, and the original Sheik was really one of the original Wild Man characters. He started in 1948, so he was in the golden age of television, mostly Michigan. If you guys are familiar with Abdullah the Butcher, Abdullah kind of somewhat a contemporary, but it's sort of the same idea. It's like that guy that comes out and does just the craziest shit imaginable. Fourth, the Sheik was big on fire. He would throw fireballs at people. He
Right.
would beat the crap out of you. He wouldn't try to wrestle you. He would just fight
He
you.
would try to maul you till you were till you
Right, any
couldn't move
instrument
anymore.
possible. And it's crazy. And it's great if that's the only thing on the card,
That does that.
if that's limited. So the trick now, I think, to the Wildman character in the modern day, where there is more of that emphasis on repeat business, being around, being dependable, is you can't go too far. Because if you go too far too often, it becomes commonplace.
Right.
The audience gets bored. The audience doesn't stay with it. We have a guy locally that's doing the Wildman gimmick. His name is Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it really, really well because he's actually, but also too, he only has to do it once a month.
Right.
So you can get tired of it if you only see it one show every month. So I mean, that's the only thing I could say to that, not being terribly familiar with a lot of what you do. You want to be careful about going too far all the time. I'm not sure what your show schedule is. I know you told us pre-show you're working a lot of promotions. You're getting yourself all over the state of Indiana.
Yeah. So
which I
Scott,
think is great.
let's go there. How often do you wrestle right now? Like on average?
So with my home fed, I wrestle, I would say maybe twice a month, but right now we're getting it to where it's 3 times a month, depending on where we're at. Lately we've been going to Warsaw, Indiana, which is where FWF is where it's home, what it calls home. Then
Right.
we've expanded out to Columbia City, Indiana. Next, we're going to Rochester, Indiana, and North Manchester, Indiana. So it's been looking like three times a month, every so often, but mostly it's twice. When I go to Pro Wrestling King, located in Bourbon, Indiana, Mishawaka, that comes around to I'd say 3-4 times a month, depending on the schedules for each promotion.
So I got some supportive comments coming in there, Scott, and that'd be Donald Stone. He says that'd be
my current manager.
there. He said he says there's my guy. Got another one who calls himself Sharing and Tales on YouTube.
That would be a good buddy of mine.
He said that's my guy right there, 100%. So there's some support in the house for you if you want to speak to them.
Thank you guys. Love y'all.
There it is. Okay, so Scott, so we got the character. So tell us about like you said you've been in the business for 4 years. You've been actually wrestling actual matches for a year and a half or so. So tell us about some of these matches that you've had, and on average, once or twice a month. So tell us about some of these matches that you have, and so far, being somebody who's only been in the business as young as you are, as new as you are, who is the guy so far that you felt like you had the best matches with, or the best chemistry with? Not taking away from some of the guys that because you might have wrestled guys who are veterans along the way, and you might have wrestled guys who are just as green as you. So tell us about like what you feel so far was your best match.
I would have a top 5 best matches.
Go ahead.
In no particular order. So boys, if you're listening, please don't be offended.
That's not going to hate you.
First on this list would be my very first ever singles match against Brutus Dillon. It was an utter squash, but it was by far one of the most fun matches I've ever had. Brutus being, when I first got into this business, he was the absolute guy I wanted to work with first. I grew up watching him since I was like maybe 14, and from then on I wanted to work with him. Number 2 would be Mike Hetler, Cletus Farmer, my mentor, one of my first trainer. Without him, I wouldn't have been in this business. I worked 3 matches with him. A singles match, I I busted him with a chain, got the 1, 2, 3. But my favorite, I would have to say, would be that first match where I got him with a chain. Then we worked a doors match, which is similar to a tables match. First, one who goes to the doors, well, you lose. Then a triple threat match with my brother Wyatt Alexzander and Cletus Farmer, and that was an okay match, but it was one of my first triple threats. It did not look good.
Triple threats are hard. Triple threats are hard because I think a lot of people have learned triple threats the wrong way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just it's something that spoke to me, and that's kind of how I operate on this show. If you guys say something that kind of triggers me, I think a lot of triple threats guys have learned it the wrong way, where they think it's okay, two of us do some spots, and the other guy gets hit and takes a powder and all that. I really think people need to go back, and it's not that hard to do it because you have the WWE Network, you have Peacock now. Go back and watch the original triple threat, the original three-way dance of Sabu, Funk, Douglas, that kind of started the whole craze. Because you look at that, those guys are 60 minutes and nobody's powdering. They're figuring out how to do, three-way spots and stuff like that. I think more people need to look at that. That's just my opinion.
So Scott, well, you came up in an era though with Cena and Orton. Do you actually go back and have guys advise you to do that? Go back and watch some old school stuff.
Yes, with the current character, with also how it's an extension of me being a country boy and stuff and growing up in that area. I've been told to go look at Stone Cold, guys like Steve Austin, Hillbilly Jim, guys like that. And Austin, honestly, watching his stuff has kind of helped me with kind of more the trash talking, it's helped me with my promos and everything, and I've been told to watch a lot of Steve Austin.
Would you classify yourself a brawler, or a hardcore brawler, basically?
Yes, more of a brawler than a hardcore brawler. I haven't really worked any hardcore per se matches yet, but besides that doors match. But yeah, hardcore brawler would be safe to say.
I got a question here from a fan of ours named Chris Vant. He says, who do you believe is the most technical wrestler in your mind? Who came up to be a big star but started from the bottom? You have a guy that fits that? Because Keith and I would have different answers. We would have answers from back in the day, like what back before your time. But I mean, do you have a guy who fits that? Who's the most technical wrestler in your mind?
Bryan Danielson.
There you go.
Yeah, Danielson's a great one.
That's a great answer.
I mean, I know a lot of the reverse, a lot of technical guys that started out as great technical wrestlers that actually became more brawlers or more gimmick guys as their careers went on. Steve Austin immediately jumps to mind. I mean, I'm sure Alan watched, Stunning Steve Austin just like I did and remembers the technical wrestler that he used to be.
Yep.
And then the injuries and the fame came in, and it was like, well, I can kick a guy, I can stomp a mud hole in a guy, I can do 4 or 5 moves, and I'm just as over as when I was doing figure fours and all the good technical stuff, which I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's great work if you can get it. Usually that'll save your body some. Gorgeous George, I was always told, was a great technical wrestler until he figured out the gorgeous gimmick, and then he realized, well, I don't need to do all that technical stuff because I can just do the gorgeous gimmick and everybody will hate me from that. But Bryan Danielson's an amazing answer for that. Bryan Danielson, nobody touches him at this point in the world, and I think Danielson's got to be within the top 5 probably of all time.
And speaking of Moxley, they're building an AEW. They're building a thing between them two, where they're going to kind of try to. I can see it coming. They're going to join forces, and it's going to lead to a match down the road. But first and foremost, in order for them to join forces in the first place, they have to have the match first. So they're going at the next pay-per-view. It's Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley, and that's a test. That's Jon Moxley saying, okay, if you can take me to the limit or even beat me, then we can join forces. But I can see what happens that, you know, where they have the match, they join forces. It's good storytelling. And then they end up having another match down the road, which is even better than this one. But back to
It's gonna be,
Scott, back to Scott.
yeah,
And
it's
that
gonna be it's gonna be a styles clash, and I think we could put something in there for Scott in that too. You know, I personally, and this is me, take it for what it's worth, but I think the more you can learn, and the more you can learn that grappling, that technical wrestling style, and at least have it in your back pocket that it's there if you need it, it's there if you want to break it out. I think the better you're going to be. You know, if you know how to work the work and do the cardio and all that good stuff, but you get yourself to a position where it's like I can get away with, you know, like I just said about Steve Austin. He knew how to do all the technical stuff, but he got himself to a point where it was like I can stomp a guy, I can punch a guy, I can kick a guy, and I can cut a great ass promo. And I don't need to do everything that I know how to do. I just need to do the 4 or 5 things that I do really, really well. And then I can break out the extra stuff when it's worth it. I think that's the secret. That's the trick.
And I 100% agree with you on that. Speaking of that, right now, my current trainer, Congo Kong, is...
Congo Kong. We've had Congo Kong on here. Yeah, friend of the show.
As of right now, for the past, I want to say, I can't really say correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say 1 or 2 months I've been trained by Congo, which has been helping, and I've been learning a lot of the technical stuff, and I would like to keep a lot of stuff in my back pocket, so when it is needed or I have the chance to do it, I can do it.
Yeah, we had him on the show, Scott, and I tell you what, that's a great brain to pick. He's been doing this a while. He's not going to only help you with, if he hasn't already, help you with the technical stuff, but he's also going to help you with character development. Because I mean, talk about a character. Congo Kong's a heck of a character. So that's a great brain to pick.
I absolutely love picking Congo's brain. Like besides Cletus, as I mentioned earlier, Kong is by far on par with who my favorite trainers would be Cletus and Congo.
There you go. There you go. And you got it. So you're on your way. So moving forward then, you stated before the show, you stated pre-show that you're starting to get booked a lot more often in different places and you're going to branch out. I mean, in your mind, how far do you want to branch out and where do you want this to go?
I want to branch out as far as absolutely possible, and I'm hoping one day to make it to Impact Wrestling, or even go one step further and go to AEW.
I love that you have realistic goals, and I love that you have step goals. I love that you said, hey, let's see if I can get to Impact first.
Well, no, first he said branch out in the indies as far as he goes.
Right. I mean, he has goals, and he's making step goals, and I love that guys do that, because know yourself. Know what you can and can't achieve, what you feel like, because you know yourself better than anybody else does. You know, that's one of the things that I think is so great. And a lot of guys we talk to, they know that. And then there are some guys we talk to where I feel like, man, you know what the ultimate goal is, but I feel like you don't know what step 1 is, maybe what step 2 is. You're all the way up at step 3, which is fine. It's good to have that long-term goal, absolutely. But you've also got to set those short-term goals, because those short-term goals are what's going to get you to the ultimate goal. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I've been setting goals like getting booked more around here in Indiana, then maybe branching out to maybe Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Tennessee, anywhere I can. Then as far as I can go on the indies, then my original plan was Ring of Honor first, but as from what I hear, that's no longer a thing. So next step will be Impact, then AEW.
I have a question again from Big Chris Vant. He says, "Do you have a great finishing move or one you're working on? Do you believe it's a show? Do you believe it's a stopper?"
It should be a stopper.
I do. I use a headlock driver as my finish, which I have dubbed the Dirty South.
Nice.
I do believe it's a showstopper because the reaction I've gotten from it from the fans as a heel or a face is just they'll be going nuts or booing the crap out of me or giving me that odd 50-50 reaction.
So either you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes dead silent, and I get the couple fans going, "Oh shit!"
Right.
And you've got that everywhere you're going. You've got that in multiple places, right?
Yes.
Good.
Good. And I also believe it could be it's maybe a showstopper because I've never really let anyone kick out of it yet.
Good. Also good. They should
Chase
not.
Chase McClure says Dirty South is the best. I love watching it.
Thank you, little brother.
All right, so Dirty South. I love that name. Like I heard that name. I said Dirty South. That's a hell of a name.
And I love that he's protecting it. That he's not letting guys kick out of it, because that's, to me, is one of the problems right now. If you have a finish, it's got to finish people, and it's got to finish people consistently. So that way, the first guy that kicks out, that's where you get the whoa.
That's where you get the whoa. I can't believe he kicked out of that moment.
Right.
The absolute shock factor, because the day I do give in and say, yeah, go ahead, kick out of it at a long two.
Right.
And they're jumping out of their seats, not believing holy shit, he actually kicked out of that.
Right. So it's great you have all these brains to pick, man, brother. It's great you have like that you study. I asked you that question earlier about studying old school stuff. You mentioned Austin. You mentioned some other guys. Yeah, I can't tell you enough to do that. Not just Austin, but like maybe check out some old WCW. Check out Eddie Guerrero.
Go back to the territories if you can. There's territory stuff on the network.
Did you hear what he said, Keith?
I think I was talking.
Yeah, he said he absolutely loves Eddie.
Eddie Guerrero is a phenomenal wrestler to watch.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, don't stop. Go back to the territories. Go back to the hidden gems on WWE. I mean, they have Lou Thez matches on there. And I'm not saying you go back and you do everything they do, but maybe you find something. Maybe you see something where you say, okay, I can't do all of it because that's way back. The business isn't that anymore. But you find something where you say, you know, nobody's doing that anymore. And it's so old, it's new again because nobody's doing it. Nobody's seen it in this generation. Now I've got an edge. Now I've got something that nobody else has got. When you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. When you steal from a lot of people, it's homage.
Right. It's right. So Scott, this is what we know so far. We know that you've been in the business for 4 years. You've been wrestling matches for about a year and a half. On average, you wrestle a month, once a month, twice a month, maybe 3 times a month. You're starting to branch out and you have aspirations for Impact and AEW. All right. What I want to know now is I want to know, like, how do you feel about the business as a whole? Because when you came in as a fan, when you were a kid, you came in at a time when WCW had already been bought by WWE. So you didn't experience like that era, the Attitude Era. You didn't experience that era where it was competition, where you had Nitro on Monday nights and you had Raw on Monday nights. So how do you feel about the business now as a whole? And how much of it do you pay attention to?
As of now, I absolutely love this business even more as the fact I'm a part of it. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
The second part of that question is how much of it do you pay attention to?
As much as I can, as much as I absolutely can, as much as possible. Whenever I follow a bunch of wrestling promotions and on my Facebook and whatnot, and I always get a bunch of these videos popping up, and I'm watching every single one of them, seeing if I can pick up something or learn something from them.
Perfect answer.
So
The
I just
absolute correct answer.
So I discovered something on my streaming services that most people know about, and that's called Fight TV. And it's also a app that you can download on any device, and it's absolutely free. What you have to pay for is sometimes they have pay-per-views on there, which is a whole nother thing. But they have boxing on there, they have MMA on there, but they also have free territorial wrestling.
Mhm.
Like from all over the country. I could not believe how much wrestling was on there. And
Fight's
you can see
amazing for
Fight
wrestling
TV,
now.
and you can see wrestling from all over, and you can see big names too, because there's a lot of guys that used to be on TV week in and week out who are no longer and are kind of making their way around the indies. So I mean, you can see the Matt Cardonas of the world, and you can see like different guys that you know that you've heard of, but you wonder where they are now. Well, I mean, you could see some interesting like things on Fight TV. I was checking it out today, and I was like, wow, it's pretty neat how many different organizations there are throughout the country. Keith and I have been doing this thing for almost 2 years. We haven't even scratched the surface of how many different organizations there are out there and how many different wrestlers there are out there. It's great.
Yeah, there's no excuse to be ignorant as a fan or ignorant as a worker of what's out there and what's going on. And I think, with all these options out there, I think, we're still fans first and foremost. Anything else, and I think in the next few years, because of all these options, and because everybody is going to be able to watch each other, probably like we've never done since the territories were a thing. I think we're all going to get very spoiled very soon for how good everything is going to be.
Scott, I have another question from Big Chris from South Carolina. He says, as hard as it is to move up in the wrestling business, do you have the time personally to put the work in, travel, etc., etc.?
Yes and no. Yes, being as of now, I do have the time and availability to move around, but that is until June when my baby girl comes around. When she first comes, I would be sticking to my normal territories until she's a little bit older and my girlfriend, fiance, is able to move around a bit more and she's okay. Then after those first few weeks, yes, I'd have
Congratulations on all that.
Well, we offer a humble congratulations on that upcoming event. It's exciting and by
Uh-oh, Alan froze. He froze bad. We have to filibuster a bit here.
I'm back.
Really back. Okay.
All right. What I said was before that hiccup happened was, I'm guessing this is your first.
Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
All right. With that in mind, yeah, when that happens, of course, not that you would label it a setback, but like if your dreams were, if you mentioned earlier about expanding and getting out there, and then when she comes around, you're going to stay local again, which is fine. But I mean, you could still make the best of all this and get seen by the right people.
Yes, the staying local would only be for a few weeks until she's able to get up and move around, and I'd be able to take them both wherever I go with me because she loves it, and we're kind of wanting her to grow up around it and see how she feels about it.
That's awesome. So also, I have a question also where, Keith and I talked to a lot of guys that have said to us many times that they never stop learning. Do you agree with that attitude? Like no matter how much you learn in the business, no matter how much moves you learn, no matter how much character development, like you never stop learning in this business?
You never stop learning, and as I've been told since day one, the day you feel you have nothing left to learn in this business is the day you no longer belong in this business.
Yep. 100%.
That's my partner applauding you.
Yes. 100%. He's right.
All right,
Everybody
so
can learn.
before we get into the dream match scenario, I want to ask you, you mentioned that you do follow as much as you can. Are we talking mainstream stuff on TV? So do you are you strictly WWE, or do you watch a lot of AEW, or like what do you pay attention to?
I pay attention to pretty much almost everything. I watch a lot of WWE. I watch a lot of AEW. I watch a lot of Impact. I watch a lot of indie stuff that pops up on my phone, and wrestling is wrestling to me, and I love it all.
So
there you go. Student of the game.
Right, and that's awesome. So this is always an interesting question for somebody of your age, and that is fill in the blank. The greatest wrestling match of all time is blank.
Ooh.
He's on the spot now.
Well, it's a matter of opinion. It's not. There's no right or wrong answer. So
I know it's a tough one because there's a lot of them that I would say that were the greatest. I'd have to say Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle.
Interesting.
Not the one where Brock broke his neck coming off top, but
you know what? But he didn't really get hurt on that one too badly.
Yeah, it looked like he did, but he didn't actually.
It looked like
get
he
hurt.
could have died, but he didn't.
Oh well, I've been hearing for years that he broke his neck coming off for the shooting star.
No, not that I ever heard. That was the freakish thing. He should have broken his neck. By all rights, he should have broken his neck. But as I recall, no, it wasn't. It was not that bad. Brock is that much of a freak.
Big Chris says Rock versus Stone Cold. Which time?
Yeah, which time?
They wrestled 600 times.
They didn't wrestle 600 times. That's part of why it mattered
They
so
main
much.
evented 3 Manias.
Okay, they main evented 3 Manias versus how things are now, where it's like Roman Reigns versus Brock, and we're going to get that at Mania for like, what, the 5th time? The 6th time?
So, Chase McClure says...
You know, and I love everybody involved in that, Chase, but I got to say,
Hardy Boys versus Edge and Christian versus Dudleys.
And I love all those. I do respect all those guys. I mean, I love the Dudleys. I think the Dudleys are the greatest tag team that I managed to follow most of their career. Edge and Christian were great. The Hardys were great. I'm not a fan of those matches, honestly, because I think they're more stunt shows than they are wrestling matches.
TLC. How do you feel about the TLC matches?
There, but that's how I feel.
I absolutely love those matches. I mean, when I first heard about them, I went back and watched them, and again, I am a little out there, so I love all the
right up his alley.
It's right up my alley with all the crazy shit they were doing. I absolutely loved it, especially the Dudleys and the Hardys. I mean,
the Dudleys were great. Maybe because my first experience with the Dudleys was ECW, when the Dudleys were just heat machines. They would get nuclear heat in a promotion where it was hard to get nuclear heat because everybody was so out there, and those guys were able to piss the fans off because they got so personal with them. So maybe I look at those matches as like it's more about the spot.
Exactly, Scott. All right, so Scott, I'm putting you on the spot, brother. If you could book yourself against anyone alive right now, listen, this is important. We've had this question pop up in the past many times. It doesn't necessarily have to be a one-on-one, but if you could book yourself against any wrestler alive or dead or still wrestling, who would that be and why? And if it's more than one, of course you can do a triple threat or a 4-way. It's up to you, but who would that be?
I would have to say John Moxley, because I mean, Mox was my biggest influence in this business. Yes, I grew up in the Cena Orton era, but the day I heard the Shield music hit and watched Ambrose Mox in his, in that debut, I was hooked. And watching his stuff now, I wonder what things we could do, what kind of story we could tell, what we could come up with to make those fans want to keep watching and want us to fight forever, essentially.
I love that answer. I do, because he is a unique individual. He can do it all. I mean, he can brawl with the best of them. He can make you bleed if he has to, but he can also wrestle. And and I think that there's a lot of different reasons why he didn't work out in WWE. When they put the title on him, and Keith will get all analytical on me, but he doesn't have to. When it's real simple, when Moxley, when they put the title on him, they wanted to see if he could handle it. And for one reason or another, and there might have been 10 reasons, they felt like he couldn't. Whether we felt like he could or not is another story. But then once you get to that point, like, what else are they going to do with you? And Moxley just knew, and he was smart to do this. Moxley knew that they weren't going to do nothing else with him. There was he would just kind of fade to the back of the line, and they were gonna push Roman, they were gonna push Seth Rollins, but he would be mid card if he's lucky. So basically, I knew he had a lot more fight left in him, and he goes over to AEW, and he had a run as AEW champion. And right now, as we speak, you could stick him in the main event of any AEW show for the title, and nobody's going to complain that they put him in. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, he don't deserve that," because he's a made man, as far as I'm concerned.
He's a 1A. He's a 1A. He's a guy you want in the mix. He's not the guy that's going to be your franchise. He's not going to carry your show. He proved that.
But he could if he had to.
No, he's not the franchise.
Well, that's where we disagree.
Yeah, he's not the franchise.
Depending on the situation, you both are right.
See? Depending on the situation, we're both right, Keith. There you go.
Yeah. If it's not a national company, maybe. But when you get to the level of an AEW, a WWE, a New Japan, something like that, he is a 1A. And there's nothing wrong with being a 1A. This is what the internet pisses me off with, because the internet bitches about WWE. Oh, if you're not the biggest star in the world, you don't matter.
No.
Okay, but you guys do it too. You act like if somebody is not being pushed as the greatest thing in the world. No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying the internet in general. And I know I'm going to probably make some of the audience mad. And all I'd ask for is, if you're getting mad, really ask yourself, is what I'm saying wrong? Ask yourself what your behavior is. If you got a guy, he's your favorite guy, he's in the mix, he's being used well on television. I'm not talking about guys that get, one shot and then go into oblivion. You've got a guy that's doing well. He's getting title shots. He's getting them consistently. When he's not getting title shots, he's being built up to get the title shots and things. Isn't that a good career? Isn't that a case of your guy is being used well? Is it just that you think he should be the guy, and maybe the promotion doesn't, and maybe if you look at him, you're going to find that one component that might be missing? There's nothing wrong with being with having a role and being able to do that role well. Not everybody. Don't you think
that each and every person that we interview with aspirations of getting signed and making a living doing this business thinks deep down inside that they could be the guy?
They should be able to think that, but not everybody is going to be the guy. It's kind of like the whole push that some politicians make about, like, oh, everybody should be the CEO, everybody should run the company. Well, here's the thing: if everybody's the CEO and everybody runs the company, who's going to be the guys that are going to work for them or the girls that are going to work for them and are going to help them run the company. I could be the greatest. Look, I'm a manager at my job. I could be the greatest manager that's ever been, but if I don't have a great team under me that's able to execute what they need to execute, it doesn't matter because I'm going to look like crap because I have nobody to execute the vision.
Scott, your thoughts on
there is a nobility in being the worker bee.
I mean, kind of going back to what he was saying that, you know, most of us think we could be the guy. See, with where I'm at right now, not really, no. but
you have the aspiration.
Yeah, I mean, if I put in enough, you know, work and, you know, bust my ass and keep going, I mean, I there's a chance I could be.
Sure.
But there are some guys and some, you know, say like WWE, there has been a couple guys, you know, like EC3. Could have been one of the top guys, but wasn't really given much of a chance after he left NXT. It was kind of like 24/7 title stuff.
Right.
If you look at his stuff in Impact, I mean, he's a great heel. I mean, maybe not as good as say like MJF or maybe even The Miz or I said The Miz. Or
they're comparable. People hate to compare those two, but it's the truth.
Yeah, The Miz has paid his dues. He's earned a spot that nobody should be embarrassed to say The Miz is a great heel at this point.
I just know there's somebody in the comments, and he knows who I'm talking about. Yes, I said The Miz.
He said The Miz. All right, I have a question again from Big Chris. He says, do you think you can handle the hits of the business, and how do you take losing matches but learn from them?
How do I take, the first part, take hits from the business? Now, can I ask what do you mean by that?
Yeah, you can ask him. He can hear you.
What do you mean by taking big hits from the business?
Yeah, I don't know what he means by that either, but how do you take losing matches? Like, I mean, some guys, and there are guys that we have met on the indie scene that when they're losing on a regular basis, when they're the guys taking the fall on a regular basis, they get frustrated. Like, even though that's just the way they were booked, it doesn't mean that they're no worse or no better than the guy they take on. It's just they're booked to lose. So if they're booked to lose week in and week out and week in and week out, they get frustrated. How do you feel about that if that happens to you, or has that happened to you?
Okay, so when I first started in the business, I did take a lot of losses. I mean, I was kind of a stuck-up, egotistical kid, and it pissed me off. Yep. But only because I didn't understand that wins and losses in this business do not matter. Do not matter if you're telling a great story to the fans.
Yep. And that's probably why they had you taking those jobs to teach you that.
Like, only time consistent losing, I would say, would at least annoy me, would be if it would mess up the story. Mess up the story we're trying to tell. I would feel that would annoy me or frustrate me at the very least. But eventually I would get over it. It's the business, you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's bound to happen at some point.
Thundercat's in the house. He says, sorry it took me so long to hop on. Family has the flu. I hope that everybody gets well there, my brother. Thanks for chiming in. Yeah, and you're right, Scott. You're absolutely right that wins and losses in this business don't matter. What matters is storylines. What matters is character development. What matters is setting yourself aside from everybody else so that you're the guy that everybody wants on their card.
I hope to be that guy everybody wants on their card.
And you will. I just from talking to you for the past 45, 50 minutes, I feel your passion. I feel the fact that you actually, have the drive. You like Keith said before, you didn't just say, when we asked you what your future holds, you didn't just say, oh, I'm going to be on AEW Dynamite. What you said was, Well, first things first, I want to stretch myself out further than Indiana. Then the next step I want to do is I want to end up on either Impact or maybe possibly AEW down the road. Like, you're setting little goals along the way, and if you stick with those little goals, you can get there. And never stop picking brains. Guys like Congo Kong, guys like anybody you could possibly pick in the business as you go along. Because as you go along, you're going to meet guys who have been around for 20, 30 years. Ask them questions. They love that. They love that. Most of them. I'm going to say 90% of them love when a young guy asks questions.
If they're
Because
dedicated to their craft, they want to pass it on.
if they can give you 5 minutes of their time to answer those questions, man, you're just going to keep getting better and better. And of course, Keith and I wish you nothing but the best, brother.
Thank you for that. But I have gotten to pick the brains of guys who've been in this long, like Congo Kong, as mentioned earlier. Drew Skills a little here and there. Corporal Robinson, One Man Crew. I've talked to almost all those guys, and just the knowledge they have for this business, like, it not only intrigues me but makes me want to, talk more and more and more and see like how much my brain can process and handle all of that.
So, do you know a gentleman by the name of Brian Stamper?
Yes, dude. That would be my father.
What's up, Dad? Brian Stamper says, super proud of the hard work and determination this young man has shown. Love you, son. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you, Dad.
Thundercat Greg Winters is a 17-year vet in this business. Says, dude, if you need some advice, let me know. His name, yes, on Facebook. On Facebook, he's under Greg Winters, man. He's the Thundercat. He wrestles down in Tennessee for the most part in the TWA down there.
Super generous guy. Needs to open a school.
Yeah. You hear that, Greg? You need to open a school. Go ahead, Scott. What were you going to say?
Tanner Nix has mentioned him a few times during one of our many conversations. I've heard of him and would love to pick his brain sometime.
Yeah, Tanner kind of met him a few times, and then when Tanner was on with us, Greg chimed in and was there to support him and was there, like, they were asking questions back and forth, and it seemed like it was more like that they were trying to give advice to the young talent while they were on this platform, which is great. I love that. I love that they not only offer themselves up to the young talent, but they also come on a platform like this where a lot more guys are watching than they think. And are taking these kind of notes.
Excuse me.
All right.
Yeah, just smoker's cough.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, definitely, yeah. Tanner. Oh, well, big shout out to Tanner Nix for pointing us in the direction of this young man, Keith, because he's the one that mentioned Scott Alexzander would be a good guest to have. And no doubt he has been a great guest. I love your attitude, brother. I love that as green as you are, you have the mindset of somebody who, as long as you stick to all those things we talked about, never stop learning, setting small goals, picking the brains of the guys you meet along the way, I have no doubt that you're going to succeed and have everything you want out of this business.
You're going to go far.
I'm really hoping I'll go far, man. Like, I love this business almost more than anything else, except, well,
it's your drug. Tell it the truth, man. You're addicted to this business, as we are. I mean, as we're just right now, we're just fans, and we have enjoyed, getting involved and meeting a lot of the guys from all over the country, in different territories, and it's great. It's really gotten me and Keith back into wrestling because we've really been irritated with the product of WWE over the past few years, that to get us to support our locals, like Keith lives in Jersey, I live in Pennsylvania, so we get out to as many shows as we can, definitely our local shows, just to support the boys, and we've gotten to let them to meet some people, and we've met the right people because they're going to help us get like big names on here coming up. We've already interviewed some big names on this show before, but we got bigger names coming soon, and we can't wait to make this platform bigger so that when guys like yourself come on here, there's a lot of people watching, and that's all we want. We're not doing this to try to get famous or make money off of it. We're doing it to try to give back to the art form that we have loved for, in Keith's case, 30 years, in my case, 40 years. Thundercat Greg says, I'm gladly taking bookings in other states as well.
Alrighty, I may send one of the few promoters I work for at the moment your way if you would like that. I could send a few of the promoters I work for your way.
I could see, I've seen only a couple of your matches, but I've seen a lot of Greg's, the Thundercat. I think you guys would gel well in the ring. I think that would be an interesting contest to behold. I would definitely love to see that happen in one way or another, if he comes to you or however it works.
And I think as generous as Greg is, the more that he can get out there and the more people it'll take him on. Because again, like we said earlier, the best thing that we could do, I think, if this show had anything as a legacy, it would be being able to get more people that know the craft in touch with more people that want to learn the craft. Because we're all going to get better as fans, as professionals, anything. It's going to get better if the right people connect. If the people that know it get with the people that want to know it, it's going to be so much better for those of us that just watch it.
All right, Keith, we got about like 5 minutes left, and I got like a slew of comments coming for Scott here. So Scott, Big Chris says, good luck to you, brother. Wrestle as much as you can. Hope to be seeing you on TV someday on the big stage. And congratulations on being a dad. Brian Stamper says, I know he will be huge one day.
Thank you, Dad.
Thundercat says he should ask Tanner about me.
We've talked about you a few times. He says he absolutely loves working with you.
Dude, Thundercat's the man. And Chase McClure's back, says, what's your most favorable match that you've had so far, or that you think that your best match was? We asked you that earlier, and you couldn't narrow it down to one specific match, right?
Yeah, I had a top five. The other three would have been Slim Trimmins, Damien Easter Day, and well, he knows who the last one is.
Oh boy, do you know a referee named Kevin?
Yes, I do.
So he's checked. What did you say?
He reffed my last match actually last night.
There you go.
So referee Kevin says, "What's up?" So man, you've got, this is great, Keith. He's gotten a lot of support tonight on this show, and we're almost done, Scott. But the last thing I want to say to you is two things, and that is, one, I appreciate you to the max, brother. You have the right attitude, and Keith and I both love having guys like yourself on who not only love this business, but have the attitude and the right mindset to probably make it really well in this business. And we wish you nothing but the best. And if there's anything we could ever do along the way, you let us know. And we'll, if we can make any kind of connections for you, or do anything, share some stuff, be my guest, go on the Around the Turnbuckle page and share all your stuff, man, because our audience just continues to build. So anything we can do to help you out along the way, brother, let us know. Also, in 6 months to a year, if you want to check back in with us and come back on and see where you're at, that'd be fun too.
I am totally down for that.
On top of that, the only thing we ask in return is that this is the same thing we asked Tanner Nix, and that's why you're here. If you know anybody that would benefit from coming on this show and talking wrestling with us for an hour, please let us know and send them our way. Chris Vant again says, love you guys, love the business, great show. I love you to the max, Chris. You know that, you're my brother. Jacob, Jacob Silvius. Cool show. Definitely going to follow. Thanks, man.
Jacob.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. That's a new fan, Keith.
There we go. Love it.
David Motorman in the house. Wishing you the best, Scott Alexzander. Big fan here in Pennsylvania. Wishing you the best, Scott. So that's great. A lot of people chiming in at the last minute here, Scott. But the last question we ask all our guests is, we flip the script. If there's any question that you could ask either me or Keith or both of us, what would that be and why? So when I say flip the script, you're interviewing us for a second. Is there any question that you'd want to ask us?
There was, but you guys already kind of answered those all.
Awesome. Awesome. So listen, guys, his name is Scott Alexzander from Indiana. He will be a name that people will, I believe, Keith, down the road will know one way or another.
Absolutely. We've not heard the last from Scott, I believe.
Yes, we have not heard the last from Scott Alexzander. We wish you nothing but the best, my brother. We will be following you, and I hope you stay in touch with us. And anybody that you know would love to come on here and tell their story. Send them our way. When the show is over, I will send you the complete show. Keith and I will be back here on Around the Turnbuckle next Saturday, Keith. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Next Sunday at 6 p.m., our normal time slot with our next guest. I am the Big Albowski. He is Professor Keith, and our guest is the one and only Scott Alexzander. Scott, we wish you the best, brother.
Thank you both.
Dad got one last comment, and he's like, they will either love him or hate him.
True story.
Preferably both. Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see everybody next Sunday night, 6 o'clock, same time, same channel. Share this out. Everybody watching, a lot of people tuned in tonight and a lot of new faces too. Share this out. Tell your friends, man. Tell them to come on in every Sunday night and talk wrestling with your boys, the Big Albowski and Professor Keith on Around the Turnbuckle. We're going to see everybody next week. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this contest set for one fall is for the WWE